Have you ever sat in a room with someone who is 3,000 miles away? With the new advancement of extended reality, the world is now able to communicate and interact with each other in these immersive spaces. Hi, labmates. Welcome to the Social Learning Lab, a pod class about social learning at work. In today's episode, we will be sitting down with the creator of the community group XR and LXD, Tristia Hennessy. Our topic of this episode will be how social learning is being implemented into these virtual immersive spaces. Hi, lab mates. Welcome back to another episode of the Social Learning Lab. I'm Diego, your learning design intern here at your Instructional Designer, and today I will be speaking with Tristia Hennessy. Hi, Tristia. How are you today?
Doing well. Thanks, Diego. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, before we deep dive into what XR and LXD is, would you mind sharing with the audience your background in learning design and what got you interested in XR?
Sure. Interestingly, I think it was the other way around. I think it was XR that got me interested in learning design. I was really fascinated by the potential of using VR for learning, and that kind of got me interested in like, oh wait, hey, what is learning design? What is training design and e-learning? And so I started developing my career in that direction almost 10 years ago. And so I transitioned from administration and project management to instructional design. I got my graduate certificate from Portland State in building online learning and educational leadership and policy. And I kind of started working as a contractor immediately after that. And I guess the rest is history. I've been with Evolve Solutions Group now for close to 5 years, I think. And yeah, I do mostly XR and VR stuff on the side as a personal passion project and hobby. And, of course, administrating the XR and LXD community group.
Cool, that's amazing. And I think it's very important, like now looking at it, how fast we've advanced into this new like society of that XR is becoming a big thing, and it's kind of like the new way we're socializing and communicating with each other. So I think it's really interesting that you're at the forefront of it all and really helping drive that community sense.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, sometimes it feels a little glitchy when we're all spending the first 15 or 20 minutes of a meetup, sorting out audio issues and oh, why am I stuck in the middle of this pond off to the side or like some funky stuff like that. So it definitely comes with its challenges. And but yeah, it's been really exciting to see how quickly things are progressing, and there's always new platforms and tools and different VR experiences to try. So it's been really exciting to just you know even sit by and watch it. But yeah, also to be a part of it, I guess too.
Definitely, definitely. So, would you go into more depth as to exactly the community group that you have built, XR and LXD, and explain to our audience, what exactly the community group is based around and stuff like that?
Yeah. So XR and LXD is a community of learning and sharing and practice. So the XR and LXD community was started by a few of us, including Leslie Early, Nicole Papayana Lugera, Kristen Torrance, and a couple others that helped kind of get the whole thing started. And I can go more into that history if you want. But we were all kind of interested in, what was happening in XR and how that was going to shape the future of learning and training design. And yeah, we wanted to build a community where people could share knowledge and share experiences, work out loud, and just share resources and learn and grow from each other. And I've so far it's been almost 2 years in, and I think we have pretty strong regular attendance. We have a couple new folks that come and go, and um, you know it's been a slowly growing but steadily involved community. So it's been really nice to be a part of.
That's great. And I think, that community aspect is definitely something that a lot of people I think look for, especially post pandemic. I think this is a great way for those who are still maybe afraid to get out of their own like circle to really like still get involved and communicate with people. So I really think it's great what y'all have done to really just, drive a new sense of community atmosphere and social learning with each other and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
kind of where I want to learn more about is what kind of conversations are you having within these communities and like and what, can our audience expect if they were to join the community?
Yeah, so we have a Slack channel where we kind of, share links and resources, training, learning opportunities, job opportunities, all sorts of information. There's a bunch of different channels for different stuff. And then in the monthly meetups, we meet the last Wednesday of every month, although that time may be changing soon at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. It will be that time, at least for this month, but that time might change after this month. So just stay tuned. We'll have more on the Slack channel and on LinkedIn about that. But on those during those monthly meetups, we kind of rotate topics every month. Sometimes we'll bring in guest speakers and have other industry experts come and share their knowledge and their expertise. And sometimes we just have a discussion and real informal and talk about whatever that month's topic is. And topics might be anything from, I think the last one we did was 3D modeling. We've talked about LMS and LRS considerations for tracking engagement in VR and AR experiences. We've talked about, AR specific tools and VR specific tools, UX considerations for VR design and AR design. So yeah, the topics are, many and all different kinds of topics. So, and yeah, sometimes it's just a informal discussion. We'll have, a couple slides with some, um, starting points, to get us thinking and talking. And sometimes it's a little bit more structured with a presentation or a guest speaker. Sometimes I've done demos where I've shared different VR experiences live and just like cast from my headset to my computer and then shared my screen that way.
That's so
To
cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Those are really fun. I enjoy doing that because I get to play around in VR, so it's fun for me.
Right.
But I think it's also, I've heard good things, and that people enjoyed it because they get to kind of see and try out different VR experiences that they may not have known about or may not have bought for themselves right away. So they get a little bit of a sneak peek into something they might be interested.
That's so cool. And I think, you being able to like promote also these other businesses that are like trying these new, AR systems and VR systems, I think is really cool and really
Yeah,
inspiring to like see that going forward in the community and stuff like that. And I think from, a social aspect, I think that the community has really been impacted by it. And I think, it's really helping, like I said, launch that idea of, this is the future. This is what we're looking at. I know Apple just released their VR headset that's going to come out with. So it is coming. I think this is definitely the next big thing in regards to just our culture now in society and how we're going about it. I think we're being more pushed technologically. And I think, it's
yeah,
really amazing how much it's growing already and stuff like that. And so, yeah.
very
So,
exciting times we live in. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. And I think so how do you feel that technology has advanced through the pandemic? I feel like that has been more of the driving force because we have been so isolated that now we're like relying on technology. How have you seen that as your perspective?
I think it would have happened with or without the pandemic. Maybe it sped things up a little bit, and maybe it influenced things in different ways that to kind of support that change in lifestyle, right? That sudden change in life and work style, really. But I think all of it was inevitable. The rise of AI and the inevitability of immersive media. I really think it was an inevitability. I think it's the future, and I I think it's only going to become more and more integrated into the fabric of our lives. Whether that means that there's a there's something called the adoption curve, right? And it's a little bit of an S shape, where in the beginning there's a little bit of a slow, and this is something researchers have identified looking at different technology throughout time, from the automobile to the microwave to the dishwasher to pretty much everything, the cell phone, internet. Um, and you can kind of see in the beginning things are a little bit slow to happen, and then that curve just suddenly shoots up, and as it becomes mainstream, right?
Right.
And then it kind of levels out at the top, where most people have pretty much integrated this technology into their lives. And I think we'll see that same curve for all of these other technologies. Just right now we're in that little bottom part, right, where it's
Right.
it's just starting to go up. And
Gotcha.
it may take a little bit more time for VR and AR specifically to become everyday tools for the majority of society, because I think there are still some technological kinks they're working out, and
Right.
making that hardware more user friendly. But we saw some awkward moments as well with even cell phones. I had a flip phone when I was in college. And I know someone in my family at least had a BlackBerry. And by today's standards, those are pretty awkward devices. So it'll take a minute, but I honestly believe that by the time that technology can fit into a pair of glasses like these, um, a lot of people will be wearing them. I
For
don't know
sure.
about everybody, and I'm not sure about most people, because I don't like to speak for most people, but I think it'll become pretty ubiquitous with everyday life.
For sure. No, definitely. And I think especially if it's a new fade or whatever, everybody's gonna do it. Especially I think my generation of like, the Gen Zs and all that, we're really gonna be pushing that new technology. And I think that's what's really driven it is these younger generations that are willing to try it. I feel like, some of the older generations are like, I don't know. But I think with the younger generations, it's like, I want to be a part of whatever new. It's like that
Totally.
FOMO, kind of that fear of missing out. You have to be a part of it. You have to want to be and see what it's like. And
Yeah.
if you're not a part of it, well, then you're missing out. So it's like, so I think, that's what's been driving. And I do think that it's important. But going back to that BlackBerry, I will say the flip phones are coming back with the new Samsung phone that has the new flip on it. I'm like, I think we're going back a little bit rather than forward, but
Little different than the flip phone I was I had.
right.
Yeah, we had to press 3 times for the letter G, so or I.
Right.
I think it was I, GHI. Yep, yep. We had three
Yeah.
button presses for I. It was a real pain to send text messages back then. Also, they were expensive. but
Yeah.
but
Can't
yeah,
relate.
I think you're totally right. I think as I think younger people are definitely excited about the future of technology. I see more young people, even my niece and nieces, are learning coding in school, and it's second nature to them. And that was something, I remember trying to teach myself HTML when I was 12 and 11 or 12, and that was something, most people I grew up with at that time didn't have a personal computer at home.
Mhm.
So to see, and there were a lot of people that were skeptical about that, like, oh well, it's not yeah, it's not the end of the world if you can't type fast. And it really, it did make a difference in our futures. And I think that those that did have PCs at home growing up, they took different career paths than those that didn't. And I think it's going to be the same for kids now. The ones who learned coding in school are going to take a different career path in their futures than those who didn't. And not that one is better or worse than the other, right? We need people to do all sorts of jobs, and I don't think personally any job is worse or better or less valuable or more valuable than another. Everything is necessary, right? Our garbage men are necessary. The people who mow our lawns are necessary, just as much as, the people who take care of us in hospitals, as the people who um, write our code and our software and our programs that help manage all of those other businesses. So, um, yeah, I think there's danger in thinking that there's jobs that are inherently better, more valuable than others, right? Because we it takes all sorts, it takes everything to make the wheel go around. So
For sure.
there's that. But I'm into what I'm into, and I enjoy it, and I love technology, and it's exciting to me, and I love seeing the progression, and I love exploring new tools and new modalities, and so you do what you love is really the answer. Find what excites you, um, and for me that's XR and technology and virtual interactions and games for learning and simulations. Like that's my jam. So that's what I
Definitely.
do.
And I think for me too, being a graphic designer, it's like that was like a last minute decision for me. I think I didn't decide that I wanted to go into graphic design until my senior year. And I think, like you said, technology did have a big influence on that because, growing up, it wasn't a big thing, but now seeing how much they need graphic designers for, the billboards and for the commercials and for every little thing you see there's an ad for, it's like those graphic designers are so important and stuff like that. And I think because of the technology, it really gravitated me towards it. Now it's like, because before the hand, when you asked me when I was younger what I wanted to be, I was always like a lawyer or a doctor. Now it's like graphic designer, and everybody looks at me like, why did you choose that? And I said, I just love the idea of mixing art with technology and, playing all of these tools and getting to just try new things. And I think, it's kind of similar in that way with the XR and all that kind of idea. And so, I think it's really cool how, that's how technology has influenced us in that aspect. And I mean, we are socially influenced in some aspects to, use technology towards how we want to go about our lives and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that intersectionality of art and technology, it is especially really exciting right now because we have new mediums that we're designing for, right? And um, I get just tickled every time I see like these VR sculpting tools are really fun to me. I'm not I'm an artistic person in that I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, but I'm not very good at it. Like, at least not from like a drawing or painting type of perspective, or even sculpting apparently. But VR sculpting, like in Gravity Sketch or Medium, and those types of tools are really really fun and exciting to me. I think that that's it's a total game changer when you get in there and you can create a 3D object from nothing. I think is just it's exciting on a different kind of level. So for audience members out there, if you have the opportunity to try a VR sculpting app or experience, go ahead, go out there and do it right now. Go do it because it really changes the way you think about the possibilities of VR. At
Definitely.
least it did for me. So
No, for sure. And I think that is a great way to segment into like our next question, which is how do you see VR changing like the way we interact within, these communities now? Like how do you like you said it was changing the way you saw things. So how do you think VR is going to change the way we see the world now?
I think it'll literally change the way we see the world. In that, once we have consumer level, everyday tech that accommodates VR, AR, and I think at that point it'll probably be a little bit more mixed reality, augmented reality, layered on top of what we see. Whether that's a little blinking dotted path to where our maps is instructing us to go for directions, or whether that's, messages popping up like, oh, you have a text message, that pops up in the little notification in your corner of your vision, or if it's a, you know, your glasses warning you like, oh, that's too hot, don't touch that, that's a hot surface, or with temperature readings, or telling you, oh, you better calm down, your body is exhibiting some, like, maybe anxiety or symptoms of stress. I think that there's the possibilities of how that's going to influence our everyday life is it's almost unimaginable at this point, right? Like, we, before the smartphone, we didn't realize how much our our lives would be influenced by them, right? And I don't think it's possible right now to fully grasp how all of the different ways in which our lives will change once that happens. But I think that we will definitely need, people to design those interfaces and design experiences that accommodate that medium. And it's going to probably be a little bit more integrated into, our everyday actions and the things we just do. And at some point, we won't notice it as much. The same way that I don't even notice anymore when I think, oh, I should look that up, and I reach for my phone. You ever have that when your phone's dead and you're like, oh, I gotta send so and so a message, and oh, my phone's dead. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you don't have access to a charger or something, and then it's almost like somebody's cut off your hand. Like,
Right. Like
I'm
your
like,
life's falling apart at that point. You're like, oh no, what do I do?
right. And I think it'll become so integrated into our lives that at some point in the future, I might be retired or in the ground by that point. But I don't know how long it's going to take.
Right.
But because I used to be very optimistic, and 10 years ago I thought that was going to be our future now, and so I'm a little less aggressive on my timeline with like when those things are going to happen, because there's a lot of things in our way. But uh, it's coming, one way or
Definitely.
the other, it's happening.
For sure. And I think, yeah, for sure. I think, like I said, like you said, like the phone, exactly like the phone, once it's out there, there's no stopping it. It's going to be one of those things that spreads just like wildfire. Everybody's going to have it. And I think it's interesting to think that, when you see like these movies like um, that Ready Player One and stuff like that, where they've already emulated some of these ideas and these concepts, we watch them thinking, oh, this is so far in the future, but it's really not that far as we think it is. I think, a lot of times we say, oh, yeah, that's like based in like, the year 3000. And, we look at it now and it's like, well, we're kind of already implementing some of these ideas in our daily lives. I mean, eventually it will be a part of, especially the younger generations growing up now, they probably will see those benefits of that in their lifetime and stuff like that. And I think, you know, from an educational standpoint, it's really going to change the way we learn too. I think, how they grow up, we were the generation of cell phone kids, we had all the social media, we had all that. And it's really changed the way we learn and we handle things because that's how we were taught. We learned through social media what, the trends and everything. And that's how we, go about our lives and stuff like that. So I do think there is going to be that, shift for that next generation of kids that, right now we're seeing the similarities between my generation and, kids that are in elementary school now. But I think that generation after, so when those kids in elementary school are now college seniors, they're going to be seeing those elementary kids in a different light than how we see them. So I think it's very interesting how things have technology has really changed each generation in some aspects.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. I think that there's never been quite uh, the disparity between how generations grew up until very recently. The last 30 years, 40 years is and so really only the last three generations of Earth's history, of the human history, have we grown up in such vastly different ways and being influenced so differently by our environment and the tools at our disposal and how we learn, um, which is really fascinating. But at the same time, it's almost a little bit sad that there's so much disparity between these generations. The technology is happening so fast that uh, as a society we feel more divided by our age groups, right? Which I think, is sometimes harmful. And I think, uh, we have a lot of catching up to do as a society to mend our relationships and our communities and our, um, I guess, our social environments, our social responsibilities and relationships, right? Um, I think we have a lot of work to do in that area. I think as exciting as the technology is, it might be better if it slowed down. And it was, interesting to read all of those, the letters that came out from the scientists working on AI, how, they called for a stop to AI technology work, just to pause on these programs and pause training these language models, because, there's, things were moving a little too fast without us putting in place, um, rules and regulations to help guide the ethics of how we handle and how we introduce these technologies. And I think that's just as important to consider and think about, as much as I want to go, like, let's see how far we can push this, and, what else can we do, and what new things can we create. There's also kind of that nagging caution in the back of my mind, like, okay, but, you know we do need to think about how we do this responsibly,
Right.
and in a way that doesn't, further damage our the fabric of um, our society. So, yeah, I don't think those are questions up to me to answer, though.
Right.
So,
No, for sure. But I
for the
mean, it
meantime, I'm
is
just enjoying the ride.
right. But I mean, it is a true part of the conversation, which is that psychological safety of what this technology can do going forward and stuff like that. And I think, it is important that we do have open conversations, and it is important that I think, everyone involved in the industry talks about it, because we don't know what the repercussions are going to be introducing this new technology to, younger generations and stuff like that. I mean, we know with the phones and everything and social media, it has caused a lot of mental health issues and stuff like that. And that's one thing that has really been a big factor is, how do we protect these kids from, mental health, and what is it called, cyberbullying and stuff like that. And it is a big thing because they see it everywhere. And so, going forward with, XR, what is that, gonna be for them? It may not be mental health, but it may be a total disconnect from society because they're living in their own world that they've made rather than a world that they're living in. So I think, that's kind of where we are now, is like, while technology is good, it also, there's also those worries of what it can do to us and what it can change in us. And, I think I did a psychology class last year, and they compared that technology as, like a drug, because it's, stimulates a part of the brain that, it makes you want more in it, and that's what part of the businesses do, is they, they use these tools that make you want more and more and more of it, so that way you keep, being involved in it, and it actually
Absolutely.
affects you and damages you. So, I
And they
think that
make
is
money
important.
doing it. They make a lot of
Exactly.
money getting the longer you scroll, the more dollars in their shareholders' pockets. And
Yes.
that was enough to get me off social media for a while. So, but the onus, I don't believe, should be on the consumer, right? There was that whole big push from Coca-Cola and Pepsi that, with their ad campaigns, kind of putting the responsibility on consumers to recycle their cans and bottles and products. And that's effectively saying we're going to create this product that creates a ton of waste and is socially irresponsible, environmentally irresponsible, but instead of taking responsibility for it as a multi-billion-dollar corporation, we're putting that responsibility now on the consumer. And I think that, social media is almost kind of doing the same thing, in that, like, well, you're just expected, you have to regulate yourself. We're making this highly addictive product and we're pushing it to you in every possible avenue, but we're, you need to regulate yourself, and you need to make sure that you're not posting irresponsible things, and you need to make sure that you're not doom scrolling for 6 hours a day, or, and I feel like there's, that there's a shift in responsibility that I feel like we need to hold companies better accountable for their decisions and their actions and their pursuit of the bottom line. That when it becomes harmful to society, right, and to human beings' health. Um, but that's maybe a little bit off topic. I think at least where it relates to learning, you know, on a slightly lighter note, but you know, we do have some responsibility as designers for the products that we create and that we put out there, right? Um, I I know I've made some pretty terrible training. I'll own that. You know, there definitely are some, you know, largely animated PowerPoints that I've put out there, and that's not fun for me to create either, right? But you know, it does take a lot of it takes a lot of convincing people that, you know, there are other ways of doing things and that we have new tools and we have new modalities. So bringing people around to the side of like, we have these tools, we have this technology, we can use it in better ways. um, you know, you need to know how, you know, what are the possibilities as a designer. You need to understand what are the possibilities, what can I do with these tools, what can't I do with these tools, and how can I make it better? How can I make the experience better for the people that are involved, for the audience, right?
Right.
Um, and that takes a lot of effort to bring businesses around to that way of thinking of beyond like this is the way we've always done it, or this is the standard, right? Because the standard is a lot of the times pretty boring and ineffective, and we have better ways, and I think it's up to us to be advocates for that, and how to use those tools and those modalities in responsible ways, but also, you know, pushing the limits, you know, and driving towards that future state, and you know, an improvement and engagement and efficiency.
Definitely. No, yeah, and I think, I like you said, if as instructional designers, our job is to, provide these training systems and everything for, businesses and stuff like that. But I think at the same time, we have to provide it in a way that the audience is going to receive the feedback and take it and apply it. And I think if they're seeing, the same old PowerPoint or the same information over and over, it's not, really helping them grow. And I think, AR in one way, I think is going to be part of these, designing methods is because it allows them to interact and engage. And I think hands-on learning is more important than anything. And I think that's how you really learn and that's how you really get a part of it. And I think this is a great way for people to really, get that hands-on experience. And, it's in a simulation that they're comfortable and they don't, they're not having to go do it in the real world, but they're able to see how it would be implemented in the real world in that aspect. And so I think, it's very important. And I think, this is going to be the future of how we go about training people and how we go about teaching people about, new concepts and new ideas and stuff like that. So, like you said, it is
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah, and I think you know, the most important takeaway for me, the most important thing for me to kind of keep in mind when I, you know, have a new design I'm working on, or a new training program or course that I'm working on, um, is uh, knowing the potential, right? And the only way we know what's possible is by experiencing it, right? By seeing it, seeing examples. You know, there's very little that's original anymore. Don't worry about copying people because everybody copies everybody. There is
For
9
sure.
billion people on this planet. You would be hard pressed to be original in anything you do. So,
Correct.
so don't worry. I think, you know, people worry a lot about being original and being like, you know, this is my idea. It's like we don't have individual ideas anymore. We all build upon a collective knowledge, and I think the that how you get to a place of creating things that are really great and really effective, whether it's for VR or any modality, is by knowing the possibilities, understanding the full potential of whatever your medium is. And you only understand that and you only know that by experimenting and by play, right? Through play. You know, go out and try different apps, try different games. When you're browsing websites, even, you know, try to look at it from the eye of what makes this a good experience. Like, oh, why did I enjoy that website? Like, why did I actually like finding what, like looking for what I was trying to find on that website? Or, you know, why was that game so good? Like, just think about what made it good. You know, what were the interactions that took place that you know piqued your interest or made it easy for you, or what was intuitive about that interface? You know, when you have an app on your phone and you're like, oh well, that was easy to set up. Like, really take some time to think about, why was it easy to set up? What made it intuitive? What made it an engaging experience? Because I think those little uh, day-to-day things that we interact with are just gold mines of information for us to pull from and draw from for inspiration in our design work.
For sure. And that's some great advice, I think, for everyone out there listening. It's definitely about taking what you see in your everyday life and applying it to how, your work and stuff like that. And I think, there's a lot of times that we very much look over a lot of things, but like you said, like the apps and like, our technology we have, there's so many things that make it easy for us to do that we could just be applying this to how we design things and how we go forward about it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Well, lab mates, this is our episode for today. For those of you listening, if you are interested in learning more about XR and LXD or about joining the community, you can check out Tristia's website at www.xrnlxd.com/, or on their Twitter or LinkedIn at XR and LXD meetups. On behalf of your instructional design team, I want to thank you, Tristia, for being part of our podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a blast. Great conversation. Thank you, Diego.
What do you think of living in a virtual world? With the advancements of extended reality, the possibility of living in a world that you create are possible. While time will tell when these changes will take place, there are many communities already learning and playing with these virtual worlds, creating personal connections and learning opportunities in a virtual setting all over the world. Even if you don't have access to AR and XR technologies, there's one big thing you can do to start applying what you learned in this episode. Start thinking about how you design spaces for social learning, whether that's in person, in 2D, or in 3D. Now, for the Your experiment, pick a top human skill you know your team needs to develop. It could be something like having difficult conversations or active listening. Design the perfect space for a social learning experience to support learning about this topic. Where would you meet? How would you set up the structure in the space? For example, would you have chairs, standing room only, beanbag cushions? Once you've learned that, share your design in the Social Learning Lab community on Facebook. You can get feedback and insights from peers, see how they would interact with your space. You can check out the full experiment brief in the Social Learning Lab community on Facebook. We hope you feel welcome and immersed in our social learning space. And now, I'd like to ask you a little favor. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a review, like, subscribe, or share it so we can continue to build a supportive group of social learning enthusiasts. Until next time, keep making learning that matters.